Hey guys, it's Eric with the Miller Park Minute, where we're throwing strikes and getting likes, hitting dingers and getting listeners. Back again with another podcast. Yes. 9-10 in a row. I don't know where we are now, but it's good to be with you. Guys, we've got some great news. We are officially a member of brewerfanatic.com. So if you haven't been to that website, it's a fan-based website. I am now doing short clips and videos, and going to be sharing some of the long-form stuff. They're going to help promote. So if you haven't already checked out that page, go over, sign up, get in the forums. They've got some great discussions over there. There's some great stuff going on right now. Check it out. Glad to be a member of that page. So just a real good, quick, brief announcement. And, of course, we're going to talk about SeatGeek, another person that is a sponsor of the Miller Park Minute and myself. So go over to SeatGeek, check out the tickets that are available for games, baseball, basketball, football, you name it, concert events, $20 off with the code Miller Park Minute. They have a nice little rating system that rates them from good deal to bad deal. So you can kind of see what you're getting for your money. Check it out. Everybody loves saving money, right? All right, guys, we are a daily podcast airing every morning, meaning upload time is 5:30 a.m. So if you are up and driving to work, plug us in, listen. We got some good stuff going on right now at the Miller Park Minute podcast. It's a daily thing, so come join the fun. Today's episode, I'm just going to do a brief, little give my little piece here, say my daily catch up on the news. And then we've got a special guest, Dominic Cotroneo. He is the Brewers. Well, he used to be with Locked On. So he now is the flagship station, 620. He does the post game. And he's also the statistician for Bally Sports Wisconsin. And he works with Brian Anderson on the road. So he is his personal statistician for when he does MLB games around the league. So when he goes to New York, when he goes to Atlanta, when he does these big TBS games, he's the guy that goes with him. We chatted about that. He's got some interesting things to say, some insight. Both him and Tim Dillard have said great things about Brian Anderson. Of course, I mean, that just makes sense. Brian Anderson is a really nice guy and a really good guy. So we're just going to quick touch some bases around the league, and then we'll cut right into the interview, and I'll give you a little brief rundown of what goes on in the interview. It's one that you shouldn't miss. So if you got bookmark this, come back to it. You can listen to 10 minutes at a crack. It's about a 40-minute interview, I believe, all in 30 or 40 minutes. So really the big news here right now is that Carlos Correa is officially official. That's about what we got. Looks like veteran slugger Cruz is going to the Padres on a deal. That's interesting. So 42-year-old Nelson Cruz, former Brewer. It's weird to say. That's a weird one. But yes, so that is, and then Miguel Rojas was traded to the Dodgers as well. The Dodgers have remained rather silent. They haven't gone after the big names, and it's kind of par for the course for what the Dodgers like to do. I was verifying myself because I was like, wait a second. Robinson Cano or Nelson Cruz. Yeah, I forget. I lose track of all these guys who were once Brewers at times, but everybody else seems to remember. Stephen Vogt, actually, he was given a bullpen role, a bullpen manager or bullpen coach role in the Mariners organization. So that's pretty cool. Another former Brewer. So I like to keep track of those guys. I know we all do. Looks like the race for Brian Reynolds is getting serious. There's some pretty serious suitors out there for that. And then on the Brewers front, there's really outside of yesterday's acquisition, there's really not a lot going on. Really, I think we're kind of just waiting out right now, especially with the council deal. I think they're going to wrap that up before the year starts. I think they're going to try and get Willy wrapped up. I think that's kind of the news that we should expect at this point. And once it breaks, of course, I'll be here to talk about it. But and then they're pumping tickets. I got the mailer. I'm sure you guys got the mailer the other day. But let's go talk about one more thing real quick. I haven't done a full breakdown on this, and I just kind of briefly glanced at it. But Zips put out their predictions. Zips is another one of those predictors there on Fangraphs. So if you want to see the full article, you can go over to Fangraphs. But they're saying Milwaukee at number 3, and they're saying for 2023. And they're wait, are they what? Okay, they're on. If this is right, they are on. Maybe. Wait, hold on. Are they really saying we're number 3 in Chicago? No, that can't be right. Am I looking at this right? Zips. Talking about our depth. What? This is me literally looking at something live on air. Or as I record, not on. Obviously, I'm not live, but prognosis for the Brewers. I don't know if the way they got this lined up, if we are for the 18th consecutive Zip projections, we'll set this year's introductions. I don't know what it says. Maybe I got to read this more. We'll come back to this. But let's talk about what's going on over at brewfanatic.com. Website's brewfanatic.com. You can see this beautiful mug on that page. We're actually right at the front. We're down in the corner where it says videos. And that's a little exclusive video that I did for them. I'll be doing exclusive video content for them as well this season. So if you want to go over there and check out those videos as well, that'd be great. So right now, it looks like on the front page, we're talking how the Brewers, like many small markets, fooled us about baseball's economics. Ooh, that sounds like a good read. I might have to read that one. I didn't do any prep because today's obviously a shorter episode where I don't have to speak as much, so didn't do as much. Best catchers in Brewers history with a big old picture of Lucroy, and then they talk about the Craig Council thing, which we've covered on multiple fronts. So Jesse Winker's prime for a bounce back. Lots of good stuff on the front page here. So guys, go over and check that website out. I am now associated with them, affiliated with them. So we'll be reviewing their content from time to time. But let's talk about this interview real quick before we put you into the interview. So I actually sat down with Dom on Monday, and me and Dom had a great convo. Dom is he's one of those guys that's brain is so analytical that you're just like, I just want to peel it back and kind of look what's going on and what's firing all at the same time. And he really he breaks. We talked about, everything from his who he is and where you can find him. Obviously, Flagship 620. He used to do Locked On. He's a statistician. If you could read this guy's bio, his professional bio, DominicCotroneo.com. The guy does everything. He's a videographer. He's a photojournalist. He's a statistician. Wants to be a play-by-play, and I think he should get that opportunity. I mean, the guy's like a wealth of knowledge. I just can't imagine when he speaks how it'll come out on a broadcast. But then he also he just breaks things down. I mean, we talked about everything from Christian Yelich versus Ryan Braun, which now he's been here since I think it was 2021. He said he talked about and he had a great perspective on it. He just talked about the transition and how they're different people and different personalities. And I mean, he really hit the nail on the head. And it's something that I've been kind of dissing on Yelich for years. So he makes you second guess things because because of his knowledge, he spins things in such a positive light. And I told him that. I said, you kind of talked me off the ledge when the Josh Hader trade happened. I was on a Zoom, or not Zoom, Twitter Spaces with him. And yeah, just good content. We talked about the big three. We talked about just different aspects of our pitching and kind of breakdowns and his analytical brain and just how he talks about it. He really gives some good information. So go check this interview out. Like I said, consume the whole thing. This is one I really think as a baseball fan, you'll want to hear because he really has some good insights to where this team is and what's going on. And this is a guy that literally follows the stats and does this every day in the booth with the broadcasters. So go take a listen. Without further ado, Dominic Cotroneo. All right, guys. We are here with Dominic Cotroneo.
Nailed it.
Is that right? I nailed it. I actually was on Twitter Spaces with you once last season after the Josh Hader trade, and you kind of talked me down a little bit, so I appreciate you for that.
I talked a lot of people down that day. Little did we know.
Yeah, right. And he is statistician for Bally Sports Wisconsin. He does extra innings, so you can listen to him post game. And where else can you be heard? I know you're on social and stuff like that. You used to be Locked On.
Yeah, I used to be Locked On. Now I'm exclusively with the flagship station with WTMJ 620. So totally my decision. Locked On was great to me, and I hope the fans enjoyed what I did. And so far, the response has been good. I just wanted to focus all my energy to the flagship, and some great opportunities have come out from that. I didn't ever want to, have one product be better than the other because one's the official flagship and one's an independent podcast. So I just said, you know what? With my energy and how much I got going on, let's just focus on WTMJ, make that the best product possible, and hopefully people come along. So that's kind of the way we're rolling. So I'm on the post-game show, Brewers Extra Innings on 620 WTMJ, Brewers Weekly right now during the offseason, a weekly podcast live show on 620 WTMJ, which is posted after the fact as well. And gearing up for spring training in about a month. I'm getting ready to head on down to the Valley, and that's my home. I'm from Phoenix, so I'm very excited.
Right, I noticed that when I did a little research on you before I jumped on with you. But the other thing that you do is you do caddying for golf. Are you still doing that amongst how busy you've made your major league schedule with the Brewers and everything like that?
Yeah, I've done it the last 2 years. So TBD if I'm going to do it this season. If things roll the way the world, I think I can probably caddy 2-3 days a week. I love it. That's why I do it, because I love it. Amazing golf course at Erin Hills Golf Course, amazing staff, super understanding of what I do. A lot of Brewers fans in there as well. So I kind of become the sounding board, especially after the Hader trade last year in that caddy board. Like, Dom, what are the Brewers doing? What is going on? And it's just, it's been fun. I love caddying. I'm a huge golf nut. I'm an absolute, just golf sicko. And if I wasn't doing baseball, I definitely would be covering golf in some capacity.
That's awesome. And now you get to work right alongside a guy that works for the Golf Network and basically does everything. He's kind of like you. And it's kind of what I've gathered from people in this trade is you're jack of all trades. You do everything. And I saw that very much, with your videography and everything you do and your resume that I saw. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is just kind of one of those.
I'm assuming you're referring to Brian Anderson?
BA. Yeah. We're talking about BA.
Yeah, he's the man. I would not be sitting here talking to you without Brian Anderson. He's been a mentor of mine for years, even before the pandemic. I'm still trying to be a play-by-play broadcaster, still trying to work my way into the big leagues. I spent 4 years in the minor leagues. BA was always great to me in the minors because he went through the minors and he gets it. He understands the grind, the bus rides. I was in the Texas League. He was in the Texas League. So it's kind of a brotherhood, if you will. People who have made it to the big leagues broadcasting from the minor leagues know what those guys went through, just like the players. So BA has been an incredible influence, not just professionally, but personally. He's really like my dad here, my professor out here, given my family's back west. So it's just, I pinch myself, the stuff that he's brought me along on and trusted my work on, and the people I get to work with, thanks to BA's connections. Man, it's going to be a hell of a chapter in my memoir one day.
Right. I saw last year you did, what was it? You did the Yankees? You did a couple national games.
Yeah, so I actually travel with BA during the summer during his national assignments. So I do every other week just about when he's on TBS doing baseball. I don't do his NBA. That's Paul Evans. Shout out to Paul. He's the man. But I basically do what I do for the Brewers with BA for these national games. So a lot of Yankees. We did a Fenway game this year. We did Mets this year, Rays, Astros. We're all over the place. We had the American League. And then in 2021, I performed the stats job in person in the booth for the Brewers Braves series in the NLDS. That was with Don Orsillo and Jeff Francoeur. It was perfect because here I am, the statistician for the Brewers, Jeff Francoeur, the analyst of the Braves. Don Orsillo had anything he could ever want between the two of us, and I didn't have to get a hotel for the 2 games here, so that was great. And then in 2022, I worked remotely on back-end research for the Guardians and Yankees series. And then for both years, I worked in person for the championship series pre- and post-game studio shows. So those were anchored by Bob Costas with analysts Pedro Martinez, Curtis Granderson, and Jimmy Rollins. I learned so much just watching baseball from those 4 amazing people. And we had Carlos Correa on a few times this year too. So awesome. Very, very lucky to be a fly on the wall in that green room.
Does he end up in New York? Back with the
Twins?
He
should. It makes sense. It makes sense for all parties. I think Steve Cohen is kind of he's stuck between a rock and a hard place right now because he came out publicly saying, "Oh, we want this guy. We're going to get this guy." And now, there was a reason the Giants walked away. So I mean, Ken Rosenthal thinks they're still very far apart. I mean, shoot, if this mystery team swoops in and snags him, what a heck of a story here in January of 2024.
Right.
Kick off
this
year.
Is like between this and Trevor Bauer going on. This is literally what we have right now in the midst of the end of a football season and the depression or whatever may come along with your team losing. This is where we are. We're hanging on to threads right now. I saw Liam Hendricks has lymphoma yesterday.
He's a great dude too. I'm pulling for him. His wife's amazing. I knew him back in the A's days, so he's I'm pulling for him. He's just an amazing human being, and he's gonna kick its ass. So, apologies, kick its butt.
No, you're good. I don't worry about that stuff. And we're kind of at that point now because this is a different season than a lockout. We're not sitting here talking about lockouts and what's going to happen and who's going to sign where once it all breaks through. We've kind of had the majority, the chunk of free agency is pretty much done. Now we're seeing odds and ends. I just saw before we got together here, Brett Phillips to the Angels for 1 year for 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah. Shout out to old friend, shout out to Brett.
So, and that's the thing we do as Brewers fans. Guys are forever like we pay attention to them, and I think that's with any sport. Now with the current situation, the Brewers have really kind of stayed strong fast to not really going out and spending a lot of money. Where do you think what do you think they want to do with their money, and what is just your thoughts? I mean, I know you probably might have inside context that are telling you something, but what do you think they're trying to do by not spending and making trades?
I think it works a couple of different ways, because when we say not spending, it doesn't mean the payroll isn't increasing. And I think that's a common misconception, because just because the Brewers, aside from Wayne Miley, hadn't signed a big league free agent, weren't necessarily spending money on free agents. They also had contracts, the deadline is Friday for arbitration to be settled. Otherwise, you're taking it to an arbiter. They're going to give a raise to Corbin Burns. They're going to give a raise to Brandon Woodruff. They're going to give a raise to Willy. I mean, you go down the board. There is going to be a lot of money owed. In fact, the Brewers coming into this offseason had the highest percentage of salary owed to arbitration players than anybody else in the big leagues. So that's already a raise in itself. And I'm not trying to make that an excuse or, forgive Mark Adenasi or anything like that, because I think it's a misunderstood dynamic because last year it was already the biggest opening day payroll in Brewers team history. And I know a lot of people scoff at it's only $130 million, Dom. It's Mark Adenasio. He can afford that. Like, well, it's a team. It's not just one guy. It doesn't mean his pockets are lined with $130 million at any given moment. It's a very business savvy front office. And when you get down to it, I will defend Mark Adenasio and remind Brewers fans, and I'm not saying everything's perfect. It's not. But remind Brewers fans that this is the best sustained success of any owner in this city, period, bar none. One playoff appearance, going runner-up in 82, and, 81 was close and everything, but one real run to now have this sustained success. And Matt Arnold's repeated it over and over. David Stearns repeated it before he left, saying, look, the bar has been raised, and that's a good thing. Keep that bar high, keep the pressure on, and good things happen. I think the ownership and the fans can work in tandem. If the fans can say, we want to continue to be winners, we don't want to do this rebuild. And the owner's saying, we agree, we don't want to rebuild, but let's also look in the mirror. We're Milwaukee. We're not going to afford Carlos Correa. We're not going to afford Garrett Cole. So I think there's a little bit of give and take that can happen to both sides there.
And I agree.
Team Sure over here.
We're talking about Brewers so far this season, off season. Time with Dom here. He's gracious enough to give us his time. So I want to talk to you about what you think we got going on here with starting pitching and maybe relief pitching. And if you see any moves coming down the pipeline, or you think any of these pieces are going to get potentially traded. I'm not necessarily saying predict a trade, but like if you think that there's room maybe to trade one or two pieces yet.
There's probably room. I don't know if there's mutual interest. You look at the Justin Topa trade that certainly started to short things up in the bullpen over this last weekend. As far as, look, there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen right now. And we know Devin's got the 9th. We know some combination of Strzelecki, Milner, Guerra, and Bush will have 7 and 8. And then who's going to have 5, 6 in case of emergency? So that's where the Brewers are trying to figure things out right now. Maybe Bryce Wilson fits into there if he makes the team. You've also got the Rule 5 pick from the Dodgers, Gus Varland. You've got the 40-man picks that you added from the Rule 5 draft protection this past offseason. So the Brewers have depth in that regard on the 40-man in relief corps. But as we talked to Matt Arnold on Monday about the acquisition of Wade Miley and about Bryce Wilson, and just like, look, we learned last year that you can never have too much depth, especially in starting pitching, because the only guy who made every start was Corbin Burns. And look what happened. So relying on Corbin and Lauer to take the lion's share of starts. Now, granted, Brandon Woodruff was phenomenal in the second half. And once they got rainout syndrome under control, it seems like he was fine and good to go. So when you look at it, you've probably got 8 guys vying for 5 spots. And realistically, it's really 4 guys vying for 2 spots. So what do you do with Hauser? What do you do with Ashby? What do you do with Wilson? What do you do with Miley? So there's a lot of questions to be had. And if you want to go further down the roster, what are you going to do with Ethan Small? What are you going to do with Jansen Junk? These guys are certainly candidates to make some noise in spring training. I still see that depth is never a bad thing. No one complains about depth. I think of 2021 with everyone saying, like, we have so many outfielders. What's going on? Why do you have so many outfielders? And look, you needed every single one of those outfielders in 2021.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I think the depth has paid off. That I always laugh when you get oh my gosh, Tim and Adam together. They always seem to talk about the pitching lab.
They do a great job together. Big fan of their show.
I love listening to those two. They're funny. But when you get them together, they really they talk about that pitching lab, and it's, guys like a Bryce Wilson would really, I think, benefit from something like that. And I think, I don't know. My one-off and view has been that you're going to work Ashby and potentially Small if Small doesn't start the season in the majors. I don't know that he's a for sure opening day roster kind of guy yet.
I'd be shocked if he makes the opening day roster personally.
That's kind of what I thought too. But I figured you'd use them more long relief. It was funny, and it's funny this comes up because they were highlighting today the relief that Corbin Burns did in his now rise to Cy Young level career, I guess,
Yeah, I mean, this is what the Brewers have done the last, 4 or 5 years of, hey, we're going to give you a chance to kind of slowly wade into the water, slowly wade into the deep end, not jump off the diving board. And to be fair to Aaron Ashby, he kind of had to jump off the diving board in the second half of 2021. He pitched in the postseason, and then, because of injuries in the year they were planning on just slowly wading him in, they had to throw him into the starting rotation. And quite frankly, he wasn't ready. And I think Ashby would tell you the same thing. His stuff's there, but the refinement, the seasoning, the location, the waste pitches, the little things that make good pitchers great. Aaron Ashby's a good pitcher right now. What's it going to take to get him to that next level is what these swingman versions of, hey, come in for 2 innings in the 5th and 6th. We have a designed short start. Because think about the first month of the season too, right? When you have a 28-man roster as opposed to 26, you get that extra pitcher, and starters aren't stretched out yet. So you will lean on your bullpen more, which gives a chance for Ashby and Wilson to show off what they can do as long relief in the bullpen. Don't forget Yoel Payams, who was acquired in the Braves and A's deal. He's a long relief guy as well. So there's a lot of directions the Brewers can go. But the big thing that I'm wondering, there's no lefties in the back end of the bullpen. There's none other than Hobie Milner. So what are you going to do? I know Alex Claudio was signed to a minor league deal. I mean, he has to blow everyone's socks off in the spring to make this club. So they don't have any lefties in relievers coming up either on the 40-man. So they've got a lot to figure out as far as trying to lighten the load on Hobie Milner.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we see that. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen year over year with this Brewers team is they tend to, you'll get a guy that'll be up for a little while, and then they play the option game. And I don't know where you stand on it, but I don't necessarily think the option game is a terrible thing. You can use a guy, then put him back, use another guy for a little, and it helps you test the waters with these guys too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the option game. Matt Arnold, former Rays executive, he knows the option game. He knows how to exploit it. They're kind of the ones that are at the forefront of this trend. Personally, and this is me talking, this is Dom, the baseball fan talking, I hate it. I think it's putting stress on the arm. It's not fair to the player. It's not fair to the Players Association. They've filed, grievances with the Rays about the way they treat their players, shuttling them between Durham and Tampa all the time. I have contacts on the Rays bullpen. Like, yeah, it sucks, but we knew what we signed up for. This is how we win. This is what we do. It's next man up. And you know what? It's your job, and if the guys are cool with it, I guess it's fine. But I wonder the long-term health, because look at all the injuries the Rays had last year. And you look at, I know injuries are somewhat random, but when you're doing something that drastically different from everybody else, is certainly going to highlight. I'm not saying it's the root cause of it, but it's certainly going to highlight, man, that's a lot of injuries to a lot of key arms that have been going up and down all season long.
Right. Now, and that's the great part. And one of the things I would highlight from your career on Locked On last season is the in-depth analysis of the pitching. I think was one of the solid points. Now, were you a player at one point?
I'm not a very good one. I was a catcher growing up.
Okay. So obviously you know a lot from experience with being a catcher. Do you think there's going to come a point, or there's going to be these guys that are going to come out of this that are going to want to be the old style? And I'm going to say the old style because you want to go 8, or do you think we're not anywhere near somebody going 8? Are you going to see the 5 to 6 that the Brewers keep doing? And it's been effective. I mean, I think we've been very effective in using the team in that manner and working the team in that manner.
I think it's different strokes for different folks. It's just everyone's a little bit different. Like, could I see Brandon Woodruff saying, "Don't take the ball out of my hands if I'm in a good pitch count"? Absolutely. Can I see Corbin Burns? I mean, look at the no-hitter with Corbin Burns, right? He wanted it, but he threw too many pitches. And in 2021, the Brewers were hoping to have maybe 4 or 5 more starts out of him, if you're making a World Series run. So every pitch counts. You won the game already. You got Josh Hader waiting to come in. And, 116 pitches, you can understand it. Given that guy had been so incredible all season long, you don't want to jeopardize it, do something out of the ordinary. But I think the way we're moving in baseball is there's kind of an overcorrection happening, especially in the postseason, that when I look at the Phillies bullpen this past World Series, where when you go to your bullpen so early in a series and say like, "Oh, we trust our bullpen. These guys are nasty. These guys are amazing," but you give batters reps against your arms. And look, Yordan Alvarez is a freak. He's also a left-handed freak against lefties. He had seen Dominguez multiple times in that series, and it was one too many times there in Game 6 when he hit the bomb to dead center field. I don't. The beauty of being a reliever in the postseason is that hopefully, if things go your way, they don't need to keep using you. I think we're going to see an overcorrection where the dominant starter is going to keep going, and the Brewers have dominant starters. They have 3 legitimate aces. I'm dead serious when I say Freddie Peralta would be a 1 on a lot of teams. A lot of teams would love to have Freddie Peralta. Eric Lauer would be a 2 or a 3 on a lot of other teams. He's going to be the 4 or 5 on this team. Aaron Ashby is a swing man. He's not even in the rotation firmly yet. A lot of teams are like, wait, are you serious? So while the Brewers don't have the household names, they have guys that are bulldog mentalities, got that dog in them, if you will.
Yes.
And just because it's 100 pitches in 7 innings doesn't mean it's a bad start. I think we need to move on from this. Oh, it's not the good old days where guys are throwing 140 pitches and throwing complete games. Yeah, look at the length of those guys' careers, and those guys weren't throwing 97-mile-an-hour cutters. So get off my lawn. I'm sorry.
Right. The Verlanders aren't there anymore. Verlander's the end of an era. Really.
They're freaks. Alcantara, freak. He is so fun to watch pitch. You can count on one hand the guys today in baseball that say, "Give me the ball, I'm giving you 7 or 8, no matter what." And it's Scherzer, it's Verlander, it's Cole. Kershaw's probably past his prime now in that regard. I throw Lance Lynn in there. He's just a bulldog, and maybe not the talent gets him to 8 innings, but then DeGrom doesn't really do that anymore. So the list kind of stops there.
Right. And that's, I think that'll be with time. I mean, I think we're gearing up to see, and I would love to see this happen. I think Corbin Burns is the prime of being the top guy as far as pitchers. I think if he has another solid season, he will be projected to be the number 1 in overall. I don't foresee. I mean, I don't know. Maybe him and Alcantara are kind of fighting it, but he's been there for a while. You know what I mean? He's established himself as one of the tops, and he's going to make a lot of money, whether it's with us or somebody else.
I mean, he's going to be 30 years old, entering free agency in 2 years. By his book, he's probably going to be a really good pitcher in the next 2 years. And the reason I like Burns over Alcantara, not just because I see him every day, Alcantara gives up a lot more contact than Burns. Alcantara gives up base hits. His fastball is very straight. Yes, it's 99, but everybody sees 99 these days. The beauty of Burns is that nothing he throws is straight. His sinker sinks. His cutter is obviously his cutter. His slider is one of the best in baseball. His changeup's an underrated pitch as well, and he's got that big loopy curveball. Nothing straight. And that's why Corbin Burns is so valuable. And the other thing that, to get projectable and to look ahead into the future, reason why teams are really excited about a Corbin Burns or even a Brandon Woodruff, for one, they've never had major arm injuries, right? They've never had an elbow surgery. They've never had a shoulder surgery while in the big leagues. And 2, maybe Woodruff aside here, just Burns doesn't rely on his velo. Burns relies on his stuff. Burns relies on location in the process. Now, Woodruff, he's got velo, but what if I told you that the advanced analytics tell us that Brandon Woodruff's changeup statistically was better than Devin Williams last year. So there's things to look at and say, like, well, Brandon Woodruff might age very well because of the injury history that he doesn't have really much of one. He has a moving fastball. He's got great secondary offerings, and he's been pitching like this his whole life. So the Brewers have a legitimate 1-1 punch. I'm not even calling it a 1-2. It's a 1-1 punch between Burns and Woodruff.
You don't lose many baseball arguments, do you?
No, I mean, winners and losers don't matter. I just get my point across.
No, but I'm saying you have just a knowledge in there, and I would love to see inside your brain one time just to see how it all twists and works. But
have you seen the movie Rain
Man?
Just
pull something out of there, and I mean, I know you did this for a living, but at the same point in time, you enjoy it, and it's very obvious, and you can tell that when you talk about something, it's just so next level. As to where, maybe the average podcaster or person would have the advanced analytics knowledge and things like that. So it's really cool to hear that for a guy like me who is gut and just likes to watch the game and stuff like that and doesn't dive into every StatCast or Fangraphs or Zips. I think Zips came out with a prediction. I didn't even look at it today. I've been too busy.
Yeah, Dan Zaborski does a great job with all that. But I'll give you two things on that. Have you seen the movie Rain Man? Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Never forgets. My mom calls me Rain Man. I've had a photographic memory since junior high. So it's just been a weird thing for me growing up. And the second thing is one of my favorite baseball coaches ever. He always told us 3 things is the goal of every game or practice, whatever you're doing. This is kind of what I bring into my broadcasts, kind of what I bring into my podcasts. Number 1, did you learn something? And, did you learn something? Did you get better in that regard? Number 2, did you find out something that did you refine a skill? Did you set a goal and get after that goal? So for a podcast, maybe it's to educate, or maybe it's to inform, or maybe it's to entertain, whatever it is. Did you set out to do your goal? And number 3, did you have fun? And I love this game. I'm sick of the negative headlines saying baseball's dying. It's only for old people. The game's too slow. I don't look, baseball's not perfect, but I don't want that to come across for me because I love the game. I know it's not perfect, but I'm going to come here with the enthusiasm and the excitement of there's nowhere else I want to be. I get to watch baseball, and for some reason, they haven't figured out that they pay me for it. So I'm going to continue to, use that as my motto.
And what a better way to do it, to be paid to do what you love. And it's very apparent and comes across in your voice that you very much love it. My question for you now, I give a lot of disregard. This, I don't want to say hate because it's not hate, but I give a hard time, I guess is the best way to put it, to a player like Christian Yelich, who has kind of been signed as the face of our franchise and kind of taken the limelight of Ryan Braun.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't remember the exact time frame that your time started with us. Have you been with the Brewers for?
So when he was signed in 2020 before the pandemic, I was actually still working for the Astros at the time.
Okay.
I moved up here in 2021. I've been in baseball since 2016.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Your time with us, technically. I mean, I know you've been around, but Ryan Braun commanded a presence. He did a lot of different things in the city and for the team. And Christian Yelich, I think, is still developing. I want to say that he's developing into the, some people are made for the spotlight. You know what I mean? Some people are cut from that cloth and they're made for the spotlight. I see as a baseball player that he is starting to come back from what's been big injuries. What's your take on where Christian Yelich is now and what we expect to see in the 2023 season?
Well, I look at Christian and I think he's not a vocal leader. He's not Ryan Braun. It's not fair to call him Ryan Braun,
right?
Because they're just not wired the same. Braun, kind of the guy, if you will, capital THE, the guy. Whereas Yelich, obviously 18 and 19, it was incredible in the kneecap and everything goes wrong. But I tell fans, go back to that day in March of 2020 and you see the headline, the Brewers have extended Christian Yelich. And the Brewers finally did the thing. They did the right thing. They signed the superstar. This is it. Oh my God. This is incredible. Keston Hiura's here. Christian Yelich. This team was so close, one bad bounce away from moving on in the postseason in 2019. They were a miracle catch away from Chris Taylor from maybe going to the World Series in 2018. So here we go. Then pandemic, 2020 was weird for everybody. 2021, I thought was a great year, especially the moves with Adames clicking and Tellez clicking. But the elephant in the room was Yelich was awful again. 2022, it was like hot and cold. It was, he got off to a hot start, cooled down, got going again in a leadoff spot, then kind of coasted the rest of the year. What I see out of Christian Yelich, look, he's not going to be the superstar MVP Yelich anymore. I think we all know that. I think we need to move on from that. It stinks. It's frustrating. And I know you're paying him a lot of money to be MVP Yelich. It's not going to happen. But you can find a silver lining. And you can find, hey, we got a heck of a leadoff hitter. Draws walks. He can still steal bases. The new rules next year should help him steal even more bases. And maybe the shift rule helps him. Granted, he liked to go oppo, but he would still be robbed in that 5 hole, which is still legal, where the third baseman can play in the 5-6 hole just off the line. So I wonder how they're going to play Yelich next season. The thing I worry about with Yelich is I don't need him to hit for power anymore if he's going to lead off guy, right? If he's going to be spraying the ball over the place, and if he's going to be a 15 homer, 30-35 double, 20 stolen base guy, sign me up. I mean, that's like a 120, 130 weighted runs graded plus, probably a 260 batting average. That's well above league average. Sign me up. He's a great role player, like he was with the Marlins before he hit superstardom. That will help the Brewers win the division. If you get above average Christian Yelich versus the league, not saying MVP Yelich, the Brewers are going to be in a great position because the projected lineup, let's be real, it's going to be Yelich leading off, probably Adames batting second, probably a combination of Winker or Contreras, depending on who's pitching in the 3-4 hole. And then you look at Rowdy batting fifth. You got Urias. I mean, this is a decent lineup again. They're probably not going to hit as many home runs, but they still got Mitchell on the way. They still got Weimer on the way, Frelick on the way, Terang on the way. There's a lot to like contact-wise from this lineup. And Yelich setting the table for it all.
I like what you said there. I do, because I think we kind of expect one thing because, when he starts that hot, I mean, you're going to expect it, right?
Yeah.
I am excited to see where we slot in these guys. I'm excited to see where some of these pieces fit. The Bryce Terangs, it was mentioned, Council mentioned that we're going to see these guys, they're going to come. And that was just last month. So I think that's hot on all of our heads. Who do you think is the most exciting of the maybe non-debuted Brewers that we have in the pipeline?
I'm going to exclude Jackson Turio from this because he's the obvious answer.
Right.
I don't think he'll be in the big leagues this year unless he does absolutely Juan Soto-esque in the minors this year. For me, and this is just me talking from the folks that I've talked to and scouts I've talked to, it's Joey Weimer. There's a couple of reasons why I like Weimer. For number one, I really think the no shift rule is going to help him as a right-handed hitter because he was getting shifted early in his minor league career. Number two, he's a man-child. I don't know if you've seen him in person. I saw him in minor league camp last year during the lockout. He's a linebacker. No, he's legitimately ginormous. He's the biggest guy on the field. And he's 6'5", 240 pounds. He can fly. He swings out of his shoes every damn swing, which tells me, one, you can tone it back and he can still hit the ball a mile. And two, he's got potential. I mean, there's going to be room for him in right field when Jesse Winker leaves. He's going to be the DH every day this year probably, but there likely will be room for him in some capacity in 2020, end of 2023, as soon as 2024, because they got to figure out what they're doing with Frelick. They got to figure out what they're doing with Tyrone Taylor, because when you look at, is Frelick going to stick in center field? Is it going to be a second baseman? Then do you slide Terang over to short if you let Adames walk? Just getting way ahead of things here, obviously. But the Brewers are embracing a youth movement. And this is where I counter a lot of people who say, oh, the Brewers should have signed people. They got to get guys. I'm like, well, aren't you the same people that say we got to bring up the young guns? We want to see Terang. We want to see Mitchell. We want to see Weimer. They got to play somewhere. So the Brewers are saying we trust the young guys. We trust our player development. We're ready to see them. And
I compare the Brewers. I've said this a couple of times on shows this year. I compare the Brewers of 2023 to the Guardians of 2022. They're going to have a lot of names that the national media doesn't know. They're going to be anchored by their great pitching and a lockdown closer. And then all of a sudden, we should have known. The Brewers, of course, they're going to win the division. The Guardians, of course, they're going to win the division. That's how I feel because 2022, a lot of pitching injuries to the Brewers staff. 2021, a lot of pitching injuries to the Guardians staff. There are a lot of parallels. Young team, great pitching staff, well-renowned manager, great savvy front offices. These two teams are going to be forever intertwined. I really see that as what the Brewers are going to be shooting for here in 2023.
You made a great point there. I mean, and you lost Freddie. When you say the pitching staff, I think losing Freddie, the rainouts thing for Burns or for Woodruff was terrible. But losing Freddie, I was comparing stats the other day when I was talking starting pitchers, and Freddie had half the innings that these guys did. So I think it's great to say that we've got some good things coming here, and if we can keep the three core guys healthy and then the backup that we have. Now, I'm gonna pose this to you as kind of a final question for the show today. I know what we'd like, and I made a bold statement. You may disagree, but I made the bold statement that I think Matt Arnold's tenure right now is currently going to be judged on whether he gets Willy Adames, Corbin Burns, and Brandon Woodruff to sign on the dotted line. That's really where we're at, where we're sitting. Do you, in reality, do you think it's possible to sign all three, or do you think it's going to be a 2 of a 3 or 1 and then let the other 2 go? Where do you think we stand in that?
I think it's for a market like Milwaukee, something would have to drastically change for them to get all 3. I'd be shocked if they get all 3. I think the best chance for you to get 2 would be signing one of them before opening day, whether that's Willy or Woodruff. I don't think they're going to be able to afford Burns. Burns going to be pushing $300 million probably. He's probably in the upper 250s. So I don't see the Brewers giving that to 2 players on the same roster. So what I look at is Willy's not going to be cheaper than he is right now. Willy just came off of a really weird year. Yes, he set the franchise record for homers by a shortstop. He also had his worst batting average. He also had a terrible on base. He got hurt. There's a lot of things working against Willy. That being said, I don't know if there's communication between the 2 of them. We actually talked to Matt Arnold about it on Monday, saying, we're working on it. Didn't get into specifics, but I don't know if there's been a number put in front of Willy, and I don't see that number getting leaked anytime soon, if there was, or Woodruff for that matter.
Right.
The way I see it, if you sign one, it increases the odds of signing the other, because then you'll know what you're dealing with, right? You'll know, let's say you sign Willy to a 7-year, $125, $130 million deal, right? Really rich deal. And something the Brewers don't normally do, especially the shortstops, but that would be a bargain compared to other shortstops on the market, especially after Dansby Swanson just got $180 million. What you're betting on there is that Willy's going to reward you by being locked up long-term, knowing that he doesn't have to deal with these rumors. Because remember, Willy's been traded twice in his career. Thrice in his career. He was originally a Tigers prospect, then a Mariners prospect, Tigers prospect, Rays prospect, and now a Brewer. So he was part of the David Price trade way back in the day. So I look at giving him some peace of mind would go a long way. And for Woodruff, I think Woodruff's obviously going to be more affordable just based on age. Hey, you've been an opening day starter. You've been our all-star. You've been our homegrown guy. We'd love you to be the face of the pitching. I don't think he'd command $200 million, but with the way the pitching market goes, pitching is the most valuable commodity in sports. So it may be out of the Brewers' control. But if I were Matt Arnold, I agree with you. His tenure will be judged on this. Can you get all 3 guys in some way, shape, or form around? What I would do is this, and again, I'm not an expert by any means, but I would try to sign Willy before opening day. I'd be talking to Woodruff throughout the year, making it clear, like, hey, we'd love to keep you. We know Burns is probably going to walk. And contrary to popular belief, and everyone's saying, you got to trade your star. You got to go get something out of it. I'd let it ride with Burns. Saying, hey, dude, You're going to be our guy for 2 years, and then you're going to walk in free agency and go get paid. Good luck, but we want you to perform here for these 2 years while this window is still open. By then, the Brewers should have enough time for the seasoning of these next core of coming up, looking up to Peralta and Ashby and Woodruff as your 1, 2, 3. I think that would work out personally.
I do too. I appreciate that. So I'm gonna wrap with you for today. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I do want to get you to you have a certain little phrase.
Keep on swinging.
There we go.
Yeah, right. That's my tagline for the end of shows and podcasts. It's a mix of Hank Aaron and Dory from Finding Nemo. So keep on swinging.
I love it. So we're gonna wrap up the recording here. All right, that was Dominic Cotroneo and mine's interview from Monday, guys. I'd love for you to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. We are here every day at 5:30 a.m. for your listening pleasure. You can either watch us on YouTube or you can check out Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for watching, and go Brewers.
Thank you for watching the Miller Park Minute. Go Brewers.